Good evening and hello. Monday, 8 o'clock, time for the next episode with me, Ray, and the show is The Late Smoke. This is episode 54, and yeah, I'm so happy to be here, guys. Greetings to everyone. I've already a couple of people joined. There we go. I've already started smoking, as you realize, but of course I will explain you what I'm smoking in a few minutes. In the meantime, welcome everyone, and it's good to see you. Good to see you, a bunch of people already in the chat. How's everyone? How's the week been? How's the weekend been? Anything exciting? Anything news? Anything interesting? Hey, Tom. I don't know if I've seen you before, but if you've been here and I don't recognize you, apologies. Yeah, it's a pretty chilly evening in UK in Yorkshire. It's about 2 degrees at the moment, so that's why you might hear a little bit of background noise. I've got the heater, I've got the purification on, so it's pretty much everything is on a max. I might jump in some, I don't know, in maybe in 20 minutes to switch off the heater because we will become quite very hot. Yeah, as usual tonight we're gonna talk about lots of different stuff. I've got a bunch of different cigars here and lots of interesting boxes. I forgot to get rid of that one of my towels on the background, so now it's gone. Sotir says 20 degrees there. Yeah, unfortunately in UK it's not that the case. As usual, I'm going to tell you what I'm smoking tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the cup of tea I have in my cup. Well, the cup of tea I have in my cup. That doesn't sound really nice, but okay, the tea I have in my cup. So yeah, I'm going to tell you about some interesting event I've been last week. I'm going to tell you about the news. There's not a lot of news this week, but there's a bunch of different stuff. And at the end, of course, we're going to finish with lots of different cigars. Maybe some of you already recognize those two boxes, so you know what will be one of the brands we're going to talk about. But yeah, I start talking a lot, and I expect to start yawning in some point. I mean, you know, as usual, when I talk that much, I yawn. The weekend was too much whiskey, not enough cigars. Well, that's the problem when you have too much whiskey, not enough cigars. So usually you have a headache after that. When you have too much cigars and not too much whiskey, there's no problem. So, right. What is my cigar of the night? What I'm smoking? It's a cigar actually which I discovered not long ago. I used to have few of those. I never smoked them. I was keeping them in my vault, and early this year I decided to start smoking it. So what we have here, let me just keep my ashtray underneath because I expect this ash to fall. One of the most beautiful bands. I know it's a very simple, but for me it's very beautiful, very interesting. So the band just says Ezekiel 2517, and there's two signatures on both sides. The cigar is called the Prophet, which is made by Poispiec or Poštanje. The same people. So it's an interesting collaboration between Poispiec and Matt Booth from Room 101. So Mike Shepankevich, the gentleman who owned Poštanje as well, and Matt Booth decided to collaborate on this one. I don't know what kind of roles they collaborate. The cigar, as far as I know, is made in Nicaragua, most likely by Nica Sueño in Roma Craft Company factory. Undisclosed everything, so they not disclose what blend, what's in the cigar and everything. All of those cigars I smoked, so this is the original release from a few years ago. I believe they did the new release this year. All the cigars been phenomenal. Look at the ash, the stacks. Smoke really nice. I would say medium to full body. Lots of spice, lots of tingle. Nothing unpleasant, honestly. It's a beautiful cigar. And if you wonder what's the name Ezekiel 25:7, I mean, this is a quote from the Bible, I believe. I'm not very religious, so I don't really follow those type of stuff. But I know this specific quote was used by Samuel Jackson in the Pulp Fiction movie, which is iconic movie in my opinion. And usually most of the stuff Samuel Jackson said in this movie, they didn't make any sense. But the way he expressed himself and the whole idea of the in the movie, it was actually quite fun. So I'll leave it to you to maybe Google the quote and find it, because I don't want to read it and dictate it. I obviously didn't remember it. I can't remember that kind of stuff. Again, biblical, whatever. Cristo Vengeance Toro. Okay, I don't think I smoked the Vengeance. Christoph, I have quite a mixed experience with Christoph, so some of them are okay, some of them are not really my cup of tea. But yeah, so this is the cigar tonight. I start a little bit early because it's slightly longer than the Robusto. It's a very weird size, 5 3/4 by 52. So it's like a little bit slimmer Toro, Petit Toro. My favorite, one of my favorite Vitolas invented by me. That's what I call them, Petit Toro. So it's a Toro, but not exactly. It's not a Robusto as well. And in the cup of tea I brewed here tonight, I mean, obviously you can't see it. It's a dark cup. You can't see the color. It's a nicely brown color. I should have probably picked some of the glasses I have so you can see the color. So we have a GABA Oolong, Taiwanese. Why this is an interesting one? Because GABA, when you see a GABA tea, it's spelled GABA. GABA is actually not a type of tea. So the tea here is Oolong, which is a highly mountain type of tea. This specifically one is picked from Taiwan. But the GABA, the abbreviation of GABA, it's basically technology which has been invented by the Japanese. So as everything Japan made, in my opinion, they take something from the other nations and they perfect it. So they take that fermentation process from the other countries and then decide to create a special oxygen-free fermentation. Which is increasing the GABA. GABA or GABA, it's abbreviation for gamma antibutyric acid, which again, it's a very complicated terminologies in the chemistry. But basically, this is known for his unique calming effect in every food or drink onto the nervous system, which is, again, we have cigars, super relaxing you, and then the tea which relaxes you even more. I think the combination is really nice. The tea usually reminds me lots of not exactly roasted pumpkin, but I would say sweet potatoes, that kind of stuff. It's very different than some of the black teas. I mean, I wouldn't put it as a black tea directly. It's oolong is more of a brownish type tea. It's not. It's between the black and the green. I always call them different category. I know for some people oolong can be a black tea. If it's not fermented and roasted that well, it might be into the green tea. But yeah, so basically, Japanese guys Japanese perfect the technologies to the way they ferment the tea, and that's why it's called GABA. This specific one is called blend number 5. If you want to try it, for example, you can just Google GABA Oolong number 5, and I'm sure there's a bunch of different people selling it. It's a nice tea. It's usually look like a very small black pearls. You can actually brew it, one of those teas where the more you brew it, the more flavors you get. So this is the second flush on this one. I usually don't do more than 3, but I know people which can do easily 4 or 5. I probably wouldn't go more than 5, but you can literally brew it 5 times. Every time we'll get more and more flavors and aromas. But the perfect one for me is the second flush and maybe the third one. what I would recommend, about 90 degrees water. Don't go boiling water. Don't go too cold as well. Um, 3 minutes. I usually keep it on 3 minutes. You can, if you like a little bit more potent tea, keep it another minute, minute and a half. So 4.5 minutes. It's fine. You can hold it. So I think will be a beautiful combination tonight with the cigar, which I like so much, and the tea. It's one of my personal favorite teas. So hopefully, guys, if you want to try some tea, you can jump in that one. Right. Let's talk about the news, and then I'm gonna tell you about some interesting event I visited earlier this week. We will start um, with the releases. There's a few releases I wanna dunk in. One of them is something which I believe lots of people share around since the release, which was about a week ago, slightly less than a week ago. Kelner, Henke Kelner released his 80th anniversary cigar, which is beautiful diadema slash Salomon slash Perfecto, whatever you can call it. They call it diadema. Sometimes when you're talking about sizes, and size double figurado, what's how we know it. Some people call it diadema, some people call it perfecto. I think for me, I would call it diadema if it's a slimmer and pretty much equal from both sides. If it's more chunky, I would call it more of a perfecto, like an oval. And figurado basically is everything which is with a pointy head and is not flat like parejo. So um, we can call it diadema. So earlier this week, the information was released that the factory Kelner all now, since he left Davidoff, he have his own factory, releasing a beautiful cigar called the 80th anniversary limited edition Kelner. The size is 7x50, diadema fina. I'm not entirely sure why they call it diadema fina. Diadema obviously, but fina. Davidoff used to use this terminology. Maybe Kelner use it as well in this capacity. I knew the ash will fall. That's why I keep my ashtray underneath. So the cigar have Ecuadorian Habano wrapper. The rest is undisclosed. They saying this tobacco is from Yamasa region in Dominican Republic, which is the proud of Henke Kelner. Basically, when he was in Davidoff, it took him many years to create the Yamasa tobacco, and apparently he probably still have some sources of the Yamasa. So the cigar itself is more on the pricey range, if you can expect something like that from this type of family. MSRP $57, which is, again, it's probably over the budget I would probably pay for a cigar. 2,000 boxes, 10 counts, or 20,000 cigars. This is about 75%, which is like 75% of those boxes will go to the US. The rest will go around the world. I'm not sure where exactly Kelner is selling out of the US. Won't be many countries, but yeah. But what's the interesting thing about this release? I followed few different forums in the last week and seeing what people talking about this cigar specifically. There was quite a few conversations in few topics in few forums, and everyone priced really high this cigar. So everyone says, it's one of the best cigars ever Henke produced. It's phenomenal. The blend is exceptional. I haven't seen any negative comment on this one. Sometimes after new release, especially that kind of anniversary or something, there's always someone who nothing special, nothing which deserves the price. On this specific occasion, every single person who comment on those places, everyone says it's phenomenal cigar. So maybe the guys in the US like Epicurean and Dexter and some of those other viewers who are more in North America, they can probably grab some of those and see what they're thinking. I'll be very, very curious as well to get opinion on those ones, because I doubt anytime soon they will be anywhere near me. And also the price around Europe probably will be over 50-60 euro pounds, and that's way too high for me. This is fantastic cigar, guys. If you can find any of those, I know it's a little bit a long shot, especially for the people out of the US. It's a beautiful cigar. It's different than Roma Craft, usually what they do, but it's super tasty. And the tea is really, really refreshing. Epicurean, yeah, I know. I get what you're thinking. You know, only if they send, not spending that much to try it. There we go. Well, fingers crossed they can send you some, so you can tell me, because otherwise we'll probably read in some point in half we'll post the review. Half we usually buy all those expensive releases and smoke them, so we'll see. We'll wait, and we'll hope they will do it. Next release. This was a very unusual one, because when I actually found out from the social media, not from a press releases. But Dexter's definitely gonna keep an eye out for it. Sounds intriguing. Intriguing. How do you pronounce intriguing? Anyway, so the new release I want to mention. This is last week there was an event in Germany, and brand new Cuban cigar was released. Standard production Cuban cigar. This is Hoyo de Monterrey. They releasing another cigar from the Le Hoyo line. This is the San Luis, which is measures 6 3/10 of the inch on a 52. Brand new size, of course. I mean, I think Cuba now start producing more sizes than anything else, just to be different. And I don't know. It's a weird. The Vitola size in the factory is called Fragancias, but effectively it's a slightly longer toro than what we call it here. The Cubans, I believe they call it Double Robusto. I might be wrong. I haven't actually checked when it's not in the factory how they classify this one, but very unusual. So they call it Double Robusto, exactly. Yeah, six and a. The thing is, information in the Cuban websites in Habanos is 6 1/4. The information they on the release date was 6 3/10. I mean, it doesn't mean much difference, but yeah. The cigar is additional to the Le Hoyo line. The Le Hoyo usually, personally, I'm not a massive fan of the whole line Le Hoyo. There's a bunch of small Le Hoyos, and there's two other big ones. Extremely mild cigars. The bigger versions of the Le Hoyo, they have the San Juan and the Rio Seco. Of course, the San Juan is 54 gauge and just under 6 inch. The Rio Seco, it's even shorter but wider. So what's the new thing here? They add the food bands to all of those three cigars. So the San Luis, San Juan, and Rio Seco, they will have a food band in a different color, which is actually really, really helpful. Because honestly, when I was selling the Rio Seco and the San Juan, when they're next to each other, you know which one is which. But if the cigar is not next to the other one, it's not easy to recognize which one is it. Again, 54 versus 56 ring gauge. You know, sometimes with every manufacturer, pretty much those ring gauges a little bit vary, one up or one down. So it's pretty much the same. And also the cigar have, I believe, about 5 millimeters difference, which you need to be very, very trained and know the measurement, so you can actually, when you grab the cigar and say, oh, this is the Rio Seco or this is the San Juan. So Rio Seco is 140 millimeters. I need to check because I don't use millimeters, but 140 millimeters was 150 millimeters. So okay, 1 centimeter difference. But if you don't have the other cigar next to it, it's not easy to recognize. Trust me. It's you grab the cigar and it's like, is that Rio Seco or that San Juan? When you have both, you can easily recognize them. But if you don't have them, nah. So Cuba probably get that feedback, and they put the food bands on all of them, so you can recognize them. But another interesting thing in this release, actually the price. So surprisingly or not, the price is just under 30 euro, which for a 52 ring gauge 6-inch cigar, Cuban, this is especially new release. I think it's unseen. It's pretty much never happened before. I mean, under 30 euro. I know it's a standard production in some countries like UK. This won't be 30 euro because it's a heavy cigar. But yeah, it's a reasonably priced. And another question is how actually this cigar is attractive for the people. In my experience, people who smoke Rio Seco or San Juan or some of the small Le Hoyos, they're either people who just venturing in the cigar smoking, more of a beginner's type smoker, because the cigars are fairly mild, and sometimes those people, they want a big cigar. You know, I've seen it. Maybe they will not smoke the whole cigar, but they go and say, hey, I want a big cigar, but I don't want a strong cigar. And this is one of the best recommendations. You know, San Juan Rio Seco, just recommend it. It's expensive, but if they want massive Cuban cigar, of course, it's, you know, Hoyo de Monterrey. It's one of the oldest Cuban brands. Still have that Cuban twang. That was easy recommendation. So, not sure how practical is the third size. You know, slimming a little bit down the ring gauge. So you have 50 to 54, 56 ring gauges now. For me, I don't know. I'll be more interested if they bring a Robusto, for example. They wouldn't bring Robusto because they have Ep.54. But I don't know, something Corona, Petit Corona, or Lancero. Why not? But Cuba will not release any new Lancero anytime soon, I think. What market is Habanos trying to get with the larger sizes they've been releasing lately? Well, obviously they don't target the US market, but if we talk about the US market, it's predominantly now focusing on the big ring gauges. You know, 60 maybe is the standard nowadays, 56, 60, 62. Habanos are getting there. I mean, they very rarely release in the standard production of small cigars nowadays. Next year, I already mentioned in the rumors I post about it, about the next year festival, the new limited edition release from Habanos, which will be chunky torpedo, short torpedo with the big ring gauges about 58, 59. I have a little update on that one. I haven't updated the website because I just wait a few more people to confirm it in the rumors, you know, because I just can't trust one guy, but usually this guy is pretty trustworthy. They now confirm the size. The size will be 60 ring gauge actually, not 58, 59. So Cuba's releasing 60 ring gauge as a limited edition. This will be I mean, focusing more on the people who like bigger ring gauges. I think it's matter of time Cuba to release 60 ring gauge standard production. Maybe not next year, but let's say in 2 years, maximum 3 years, they will have standard release, standard production 60 ring gauge. I'm pretty sure. That's where they're focusing, because you see they release in less and less small sizes. They keep the Lanceros for regional editions and stuff like that. Maybe where the market is more focused on that kind of cigars, that kind of sizes. And of course, Cuba no, it's probably 20% of their sales, of their production, going ended in the US. So they must be completely stupid and ignorant if they don't actually realize that one. Epicurean says Habanos have a regular supply of non-Cuban tobacco, so can afford to make larger engages. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think they have problem of the tobacco, even if they say, oh, we have problems every year, they have a crop reduce and hurricanes and all kind of stuff like that. But don't forget that Cuba doesn't use even probably half of the tobacco. Habanos doesn't use even half of the tobacco Cuba produce. They also want to keep that story tale. Oh, we use only well tobacco, only from this specific region. We don't touch anything else. Nonsense. I'm pretty sure they use tobacco from other regions in Cuba, but they just don't want to. They want to put it there. You know, they will somehow break the story. This is a bedtime story that, oh, we use only this specific type of tobacco, and if you use anything else, it will destroy the flavor and stuff like that. Nonsense. Anyway, Jacob's asking, are Lanceros so much harder to make? Oh yeah, 100%. Lancero is probably the hardest size to make. Lanceros and Perfectos or Figurados, double Figurados, those are hard. It takes significantly more time to a roller to make it than the standard bigger engages. Also, most of the rollers all over the world, not only Cuba, but even in DR and Nicaragua or whatever, they are paid on the quantity they made. So paid on piece, basically. You need to make, I don't know, X amount of number of cigars, and if you make 400 cigars a day, let's say 400 cigars a day, you will get paid that amount of money. And if you make 420, you get paid more. So it's not like you're on a salary, you get paid $20 a day, and it doesn't matter how much you roll. So people who roll that kind of sizes, Lancero, Figurado, something weird, barber poles and stuff like that, usually on a different type of payment. So they paid more because they cannot produce some same amount as if you roll Robustus, for example, or maybe Taurus. And that costs more money. That's why sometimes when you see a Lancero, it's more expensive than the Toro. Or some double Figurados are way more expensive than Toro, which is similar size, or Gordo, similar length and engage. Also, there's another factor, the quality control, whatever exists. I mean, most of the countries do quality control properly. It's a way bigger percentage of those sizes which didn't pass the quality control. Either they are plucked, either they're not heavily rolled, filled. There's something missing in those cigars. So when they have more rejection, that means they need to redo them again. Most of the factory, I don't know if you've seen how the factory operate, but when I'm saying redoing, what is mean? So when a bunchero bunches the cigar before they pass the cigar to the roller, so he punches the cigar, put them in a molds. After cigars been in a mold and they are ready for to be rolled, so they have only binder, not wrapper. They go through the draw test machines, and if they don't pass, they send it back to the rollers to redo them again before they put the wrapper. So in this case, they don't destroy the cigar, they don't throw the cigar, they just redo them again. They take off the binder. Maybe if they can't do it at the moment because it's a little bit too dry, they wet it again and put it back in the bales, and they redo them again at some point. How would one know if Cuba used other tobaccos than their own? This is a question for $1 million. I mean, lots of people sworn by that Cuba use other tobacco. There's so many producers, so many people who are in the cigar industry. Of course, Cuba never said anything like that, and they will never announce it. Even if someone say, "Oh, Cuba used that, and I have proof of that," Cuba will deny until the end. So Cuba will never say they use anything different. But I've been to so many sessions, Zoom calls, shows where people says, "Oh, Cuba buy from Nicaragua, they buy from DR, they buy from Honduras, they buy from Costa Rica." Of course, no proof of that. But all those people who mentioning this are pretty much capacities in the industry. They're not just random people. They're not like someone like me who just, listening about the rumors and talk about it. They're actually people who blend cigars, they grow tobacco, they can taste tobacco. So some of those people, they can smoke tobacco and they can smoke a cigar and they can tell you if there's a Dominican tobacco, if there's a Honduran tobacco, if there's a Nicaraguan, etc., etc. And if you curious more on that topic, in my Instagram, I've got a sessions with interviews, about 20 interviews. I did them more than a year ago, I think 2 years ago almost. And I ask every single person of those people, if those guests, are they eating Cuba use anything but Cuban tobacco? And a few examples just top of my head. Pete Johnson says definitely they use something different, and he's a big Cuban smoker, so he respect and know the Cuban tobacco. So he said in some of those in that episode, in that question, they were using something. He smoked a bunch of cigars, Cuban cigars, which doesn't taste like Cuban entirely. Sebastian de Coupe from Cavalier Cigars, he said exactly the same thing, and he used to have a retail shop in Switzerland selling lots of Cubans. He's very familiar with the Cubans, and he says there's a few occasions where he was smoking a Cuban cigar and he can definitely taste the Honduran tobacco in there. Another example, Skip Martin from Roma Craft said in a session where he know Cuba use Nicaraguan tobacco, he know where they buy from, etc., etc. When I was in Nicaragua, I asked a bunch of the people in the factory, say, is it Cuba buying from you? Some of them just categorically says, no, of course, no, we don't sell to Cuba. But there was a bunch of people which were just laughing and just smiling on that question. They don't answer me, but they smiling, which again, they didn't say no, didn't say yes, but for me, it's very controversial. There's another example. A very good friend of mine who was a very, very senior in the Nicaraguan tobacco chamber years ago. He saw how he saw the customs declarations and custom documents for export of Nicaraguan tobacco to Cuba. And this is like every month he saw containers going to Cuba with tobacco. So many different, on different occasions, people confirm stuff like that. So it's not like one person just keeps saying that. No, it's a bunch of different people telling everyone. And I believe Cuba used different tobacco in some of their cigars. I said it many times. I don't have proof, of course, but it's my own opinion. Well, is it logical? Jacob is asking another question. Is it logical that Cuba could make a tobacco needed to produce the amount they're producing? Well, I don't think any tobacco producer, if I can get the question right, I don't think any tobacco producer around the world, he produces exact tobacco he needs. All of those people producing usually more tobacco than what they need, if they can. There's always risk with the crop. Might be a hurricane, might be, I don't know, fire, might be some, cataclysm who basically destroy your crop. And then if you have an exactly produced crop from the previous year, you won't have more for this year. So they usually produce more than what they can use. They keep storing it and then reuse it. Every few years they rotate that crop. They use some of the older one. They put the new one there. And it's always good to have a big inventory because, if you want to produce a new cigar and you need a specific type of tobacco, it's good to have an inventory where you can jump in and just grab something instead of buying. And with Cuba, the people in Cuba produce lots of tobacco, but the Cuba tobacco who own all the fields and everything, they don't own the fields, they own the tobacco from the farmers. They decide what to buy and what to use. And usually all the Habanos, premium Habanos, they're all using tobacco from Royal Tobacco, which is the main region for Habanos. But this is only a very small piece of land in Cuba. It's not everything. And they can easily grow much more tobacco and use much more tobacco. But again, they maybe use it, but they don't want to break the story. This has always been that nostalgic story. Oh, we use only this specific type of tobacco. That's why our cigars are the best in the world, according to them. Anatoly, what you smoking? Smoking a Honduran Puro. Which one is that? Okay, that was the release Habanos have this week, and we'll jump to the last news. It's not much of a news; it's more of a review. I want to comment. So, my dear colleagues from Half Wheel, um, I love their reviews sometimes. So this time they review a very interesting cigar, and this is Charlie Minato, which is usually very critical. So he reviewed one of the highly anticipated releases soon. That was the La Union, the My Father Tatuaje collaboration. So this was the one which is from the Red Humidor. And if you don't know the story, my father released two humidors with collaboration between Tatuaje and himself, using different cigars, different wrappers, very highly priced product, MSRP over around $60. So Halfway did a review on these cigars, and I enjoy them. I enjoy to read those type of stuff because I would not smoke those type of cigars. I mean, I don't have access to them. I wouldn't pay the amount of money they cost. But this specific one, and usually Charlie's, I think he rated quite high most of the tatuajes. So on this specific occasion, the final score on the cigar was 83, which is super low for half wheel. The main problem he have is just the cigar keep having tar as tons. They cut in the cigars. They smoke 3 cigars. Charlie smoked 3 cigars, so you keep cutting the cigars, but every cigar bringing tar and leaking as crazy. Which I don't remember seeing. Usually, my father's cigars having that much tar. Tatuaje even less. I don't remember Tatuaje having tar. And the tar is not something, lots of people, if I can probably jump in here a little bit, and lots of people, I mean, there's very often question, why does the cigars have tar? So usually the tars appear when you slightly cut the cigar very, make a small opening in the cigar on the punch cut sometimes and stuff. But I asked a bunch of different people about it. I'm not sure exactly. There's a few different answers as why there's a tar coming up on the cup, on the tobacco, on the cigar. Some people were saying if you're salivating more. I asked Jose Blanco, he gave me that example. So if you're a wet smoker, I'm usually a wet smoker, so I salivate a lot when I'm smoking. I chew the tobacco a little bit. So if you do that, you will have more often tar than usually. To be honest, the one brand I usually have tar, this is Fuente, especially on the Figurado sizes. Then I've asked other people why the tar appear on the cigar. They says it's the way they process the tobacco. So something in the process of fermentation and drying and everything, just keep the tar in the cigar, in the leaf, instead of get rid of it. So tar is one of the components which usually remove with the fermentation. The nice fermentation, the tar is gone. The drying also on the tobacco have little effect on that one. There's no unified answer. Everyone will give you probably whatever you think. Maybe one day I will make a proper research on that one and ask as many people as I can see, especially blenders. But this will be one of the stuff when I visit the factories next time, and I'm gonna speak with the master blenders, people in the factory, why the tar appear, see what they can answer. I'll maybe collect some answers and put them out there. Yeah, Dexter's agree with me. Fuente is worst on tar in my opinion. For me as well. Fuente have one very interesting and unique cigar in my opinion. This is the Añejo 888, which is like a pencil shape. For me, it's phenomenal cigar taste-wise, but 9 out of 10 on this cigar, even 9.5 out of 10, there's a tar. Usually when I smoke this cigar, I'm prepared to cut it at least 3 or 4 times, because every time you have tar, what I would suggest, usually cut a little bit from the cup, smoke another 20 minutes, the tar will come again, cut again. So when you smoke this, I think is over 6.5 inches pencil, you cut it at least 3 or 4 times. Charlie Ignato is the slowest smoker in the world, usually 2 hours to Robusto. I mean, I don't think the speed have anything to do here on the tar. But yeah, it was a surprisingly very low score on this cigar for a $60 cigar. That's why I want to comment it. You know, if it was $10, $12, $15, it's fine. But yeah, if you purchase a cigar, when you burn the tar, I don't think the tar is deeply in the cigar. The tar is usually on the top of the cap on the head. It doesn't go to the end. You know, it appears only on the top. It's very unusual. When you cut that 2 millimeters, usually there's no tar. Very rarely you have tar deeply in the cigar. If you have deeply in the cigar, this is really, really bad from the cigar. You know, I don't remember having, you know, after cut off 2 millimeters, I don't remember having tar there usually. So yeah, purging the cigar, you just blow the air so you can remove some particles and style something which doesn't, particles of the oil which start burn. So I don't think purging the cigar can change anything on the tar. I don't think you can bring the tar to the end of the cigar unless it's pretty much on the end. But usually when you already the last inch, last piece of the cigar, if you already have tart a few times, you probably wouldn't even wait to go to the last bit. You're gonna bin the cigar in some point because it's, once you taste that tar, it's bitter. It's unpleasant. It's I don't know. For me at least, there's a few occasions when I'm smoking and I feel it in my lips and I was like, what is that? And then I realize it's tar. And yeah, you clean it, but you don't finish the cigar usually the way you finish it. You're paying the offset of the cost of the humidor of the La Union, I think. I mean, all those humidors are very expensive usually, and I don't expect to be a cheap one. I mean, it will be nothing special. Maybe it won't be nothing special if they don't put a high price on those type of humidors. Even if the cigar is nothing special, they just need to. They're obliged to do it. Need to be expensive because it's rare, it's collectible, and that kind of stuff. So yeah. Anyway, this was the last news for today. Again, there was a very short shortage on news, interesting news this week. Now, let me tell you about an event I visited. I was invited last week in UK. In UK, during the few days midweek, in the last midweek, was the UK launch of the new Ramon Allones Absolutus Limited Edition 2024. So I visit one of those events. I'm usually not very keen to go there, but this time the invite came from good friends of mine, one of the retailers, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually not very busy at the moment, specifically that Thursday. I was like, I'll come and see you. I'll smoke the cigar and see what I'm thinking. So Ramon Allones Absolutus was the limited release 2024. It was released officially, I believe, around March, April time on a big event in Switzerland. And now most of the countries start launching the cigar in the last few months, UK as well last week. So my feedback on this cigar, I'm completely honest with you, if I need to score the cigar, my score will be 4 out of 10. The main issues I have with the cigar was so tight, and I don't use draw tools, you know, perfect draws or stuff. I mean, I don't know. I can probably find some of those on the event, but I was trying to squeeze it. So the first third of the cigar, super tight. Then maybe the knot or whatever the problem was actually burnt off, and after the halfway through, the cigars open up, and actually the draw was really nice. There's no issues with the draw. The best part of the cigar was pretty much the middle part. I can get some nice flavors once the cigars open up, start burning nice, no problem. And the last part was changed as well, become quite harsh, unbalanced. something I just don't want to smoke again. The first part of the cigar flavor wise was so spicy, which usually Cuba doesn't do that kind of spiciness, unpleasant spiciness. I don't mind spicy cigars, but this was, you know, unpleasant spiciness. It was one dimensional spiciness. It's just spicy, 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 spicy. Your mouth is just covered with this spiciness, and you can't taste anything else. So yeah, that's why I give 4 out of 10 in my opinion. Um, it didn't deserve more. Most of the people on the event actually rated a little bit higher. They say, okay, it's not a bad cigar. I think I was the only one having a problem with the draw, at least with the people I was surrounded around me when we were discussing. All of them were smoking fine, but mine was just so tight. So, I'm always says I'm not a believer that you need to rest the cigars, but in this occasion, I don't think the cigar will get worse than what is it if you age it. So maybe age it few years might open up. As an example, last night I was on another gathering with a bunch of friends. I decided to smoke Partagas Legados, which was the 2020 limited edition, and this was my third or fourth Legados which I smoked during the years. All of the others was just meh, nothing interesting. And the last night Legados, heart on my hand on my heart, it was probably the best Cuban cigars I smoked this year. It was 10 out of 10. Phenomenal. The ash was literally halfway through. Doesn't want to fall. Stacking up nicely. Burn perfect. Draw perfect. Lots of flavors and aromas. And I'm not a Partagas guy. I usually never been a massive fan of Partagas, so I'm very skeptical when I get Partagas. Doesn't matter what kind of Partagas, expensive, cheap, or whatever. And this Legados was hitting every spot you want from a cigar. I just don't want to finish it. It was so nice. So I think this 5 years, 4 or 5 years of keeping the cigar help a lot, and now the cigar is perfect to be smoked. I have one more of the Legados, which I want to smoke it soon, so I want to see how is it. But in the same time, I don't think I can find another one, and maybe I want to keep it for longer and smoke it in a few years. See, is that beautiful smoke change again and go down, and maybe waiting for another maturation in some point. So but yeah, Ramon Leones Absolutos is not a cigar to enjoy at the moment. At least I didn't enjoy it. Maybe some of you guys have a different experience. Epicurean says similar experience with Absolutos, so I'm glad I'm not the only one. Jacob's asking, what do you think about Cuba's utility control? Was that quality control? I mean, just what I said on the Absolutos again. It's the draw is always the big issue in Cuba. I've always said that I'd never have unsmokable Cuban cigar. This was tight, but you open up. I didn't do anything. I didn't remove any tobacco. I want to keep the blend. I massage it, of course. Chew everything. You open up, so I smoke it. But those problems with the plugged cigars, Cuba, I've seen so many people complaining on that one. So I reckon Cuba doesn't follow all the rules on there. We always joke Cuba have only one draw test machine in the whole Cuba, which might be true. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But also my other issue is when you put in cigars in the boxes, sometimes there's lots of imperfections on the wrapper, and I'm talking about high-end cigars. I probably told you guys when they release Cuiba Splendido Gran Reserva, I think was released earlier this year. I was with a friend of mine who have a shop and a lounge, and he literally was just receiving 2 boxes of the Gran Reserva, and of course I want to see them. I opened the boxes, and there were 3 cigars on the top row on the Gran Reserva where they have massive green spots. I know that doesn't affect anything on the flavor and aroma. I mean, it's just the green spots. With the drying process, they didn't dry out completely. But you can't have these imperfections on a cigar which is 700 pounds a piece. You know what I mean? When you put in that kind of cigars, And you see, obviously, when you putting the wrapper on the cigar, you see there's a problem with the wrapper. Just don't use this as a wrapper. Use it as a binder or something else. Don't use those green spots on the. I mean, when you buy this box of, I don't know what was the retail on the box, something like 10,000 pounds or something like that. I mean, I don't remember. And you have like you open it and you see those 3 cigars with green spots all over. It's not nice. And this is quality control. You know, whoever put the cigars in the box, just I don't know, do something. Don't use them. Reject them. I know it's expensive cigar, but just change the wrapper. Don't use that wrapper. Amoko Lemi. I think the most things there is a point of diminishing return with cigars. Whether quality and taste is just slightly better than a truly good or great stick, but the price increase is massive. Of course. I don't think most entirely and average Cubans are worth it if you're paying top for the line New World prices for. I mean, this always will be a discussion. Is it the Cubans worth the price? No, probably. But lots of people still smoke predominantly Cubans. Even last night, I was with 8 people. We were all 8 people all together. Me and another guy were the most of those. I think less than half of those 8 people. So 2 or 3 of us were smoking non-Cubans predominantly, and the rest were smoking only Cubans. I mean, and they are like, well, we don't like New Worlds and stuff like that. Maybe it's just the labels. Maybe it's just showing off. Maybe, I don't know. I try to be objective. I smoke everything. Again, Legados last night was phenomenal cigar. And if I'm someone who smoke only New Worlds, will be like, just another one. But no, I try to be open-minded and smoke them. And every time I have a good cigar, I don't care where the cigar is coming from. It can be any, I don't know, Borneo in the jungle. If they make a good cigar, and if it's a good cigar, I'll say it's a good cigar. I have no problem with that. I don't care about labels and bands. And I always says, if someone pretend that he smoke only Cubans and he like only Cubans, just do a blind taste. Give him a few cigars which are not Cuban, and some of them are Cuban. Tell him to guess which one is a Cuban if it's that good. Yes and no. I mean, it's a status brand. Is it class? Well, honestly, if let's say I go to a lounge and there's 5 people smoking, I would not even look at the guy who smoked the bake. But if someone smoke a Black Label Morphine, or this one, for example, Ezekiel, the Prophet, I'll be literally drawn to the guy, and I will want to start a conversation with him, and I want to talk about cigars, I want to talk about stuff. And the guy with the Beike, I can say, hello, how are you, blah, blah, blah. I don't even want to discuss cigars with him. Even if he asks me anything about cigars, I'll probably play the ignorant sheep, and I'll be like, oh, I just started smoking a few days ago. I don't know. I don't know anything about cigars. I'm not interested in talking with those people. You know, maybe, I mean, Beike is a phenomenal cigar when it's good usually. So don't get me wrong, I like Beike. But when I see people smoking them, majority of the time, 9 out of 10, I don't know, 90 times out of 100, those guys buy them because of the band. And I don't like that. They just maybe want to show off, yeah, look at me, I'm smoking 400-pound cigar. You know, I'm better than the others, maybe. I have more money than the other people. I mean, it's nothing wrong if you can have more money, but it doesn't mean you have more taste. Anyway, so that was my feedback on the Absolutus event. It's not a cigar which I want to smoke anytime again soon. I think price-wise in UK they are something like 60 quid, 60 pounds. Quite pricey cigar for what is it. I don't see this as a collectible item. I don't think price will go massively up in a year's time. Maybe it will go 40-50% up in the next 5 years. If someone planning to invest on Absolutus, I don't think it's an invest worth cigar. You obviously can make your money maybe after the 2-3 years and the cigar's already completely sold out everywhere. You might make some money if you want to sell them, but I don't think you can make a decent money on that one. Right, I think it's been already almost an hour, and I was a little bit worried today what I'm going to talking about if I don't have that many news. But you guys been so good with the questions and the comments. So let's talk about some cigars I have next to me, and of course, probably some of you already seen the boxes and they recognize some of those cigars. But there's a very, very interesting brands I want to mention. And we will start. Let me just move those ones and put it on the side. Literally, the only cigar I need, it's underneath those boxes. There we go. Always good when class is paying attention. Right. The first brand I want to talk about, and this is a brand called Jake Wyatt. I have only one cigar, but during the years I smoked quite a few of them. They all look very interesting with those duo wrappers, triple wrappers, you know, funky looking cigars. This is not an exception. This is the Herbert Spencer line. I believe this is a San Andres wrapper, but there we go. Interesting looking cigar. Jake Wyatt as a brand is actually one of those brands which are very, very close to a sport person, and one of the co-owners is actually ex-baseball player. You know, we always talk about when somebody releases a cigar or brand and it's a ex-professional player of any kind of sport, basically. So this one here, a gentleman called Neo Garcia. I have no idea who's the guy as a sport player. Never watch baseball, so I'm not a massive baseball guy. But if you follow baseball, probably you're familiar with the name. Him and his partner in the cigars, another gentleman who is an ex-firefighter. They did a partnership in the tobacco business. They started the company. There's not much of official information when Jake Wyatt started, but some sources mention 2019, 2020. Sounds about right. So the company's named Jake Wyatt based on those two guys' sons, Jake and Wyatt. So it doesn't mean you know a specific guy. It's just like Alec Bradley, basically, like Christoph. Those cigars are all named after kids. The cigars are $15, $18, $20 range. They do a Lanceros as well. They don't own a factory. So I believe most of the cigars are made in Dominican Republic. I think they have few exceptions with Nicaragua as well. But very small, very boutique brand. I'm not sure if you guys seen it. Probably you've seen the look of those cigars because they all look very interesting and yeah. I'm okay. We need more New World hidden gems, blends or brands. Try the Baccarat Nicaragua. Fantastic for the. I've never smoked the Baccarat Nicaragua. You know, Baccarat used to be a very old American brand which were very well known for his super mild and creamy style cigar. I've smoked a bunch of the old Baccarats. Never been a massive fan. But yeah, I haven't tried the Nicaragua. Hopefully have more body and more power to it. Right, this cigar make me salivating so much. So based on this one, I can tell you there's a most likely predominantly Nicaraguan tobacco there. So when I'm smoking the Nicaraguan purus and stuff, I salivate so much. Okay, Dexter said something which I don't know. The guy who owns Mardo Cigars, it's one of the part owners. I mean, Mardo Cigars is one of those very interesting shops to buy stuff. So if you guys want to buy from the States or in the States, Mardo Cigars are always super unique cigars and such a small niche boutique stuff. So makes sense one of the owners to be involved with the brand. So the next brand I want to mention, it's called Yasum Kral, owned by a very controversial person. I have two examples of Yasum Kral here. I smoke pretty much everything else I have. Those are the only two I have, and the longer one here, it's actually a quite old one. That's the 2017 release. I have, so Yasum Kral is owned by Ristevsky. which is a Macedonian guy. I believe he lived in the US for many years. He's a very controversial. He's always, if you follow him in the social media, it's always commenting, very arguing with some of the cigar owners. I don't think lots of people like him in the cigar industry, but I mean, I like people like him, people which doesn't care who they're talking about. Yasum Krau, they're made in Nicaragua. I believe Riste changed few factories during the years. He owned the factory now. But yeah, as Jacob mentioned, Yasub Krau mean I'm a king. This is on Slavic language, on Serbian, Macedonian, and my language as well. Pretty much on my language it's almost the same. Riste did something interesting years ago. He released a cigar which was CBD infused and TCA, TCE. I don't know what was the other thing, oil from the marijuana. I've smoked one of those. Honestly, I didn't feel anything. I never tried any drugs in my life. You know, I never tried marijuana, but I was a bit skeptical when I smoked this one. I didn't feel anything. The cigar was very minty. That was the only difference. I don't think I've experienced lots of cigars which is so minty. It was like something like mint leaves inside the cigar, and you can, when you smoke it, you feel that freshness, which was very unusual. But yeah, one of those brands, boutique ones. He's very. I think he at the moment tried to basically selling very cheap cigars in retailers like Cigar Page and a few other places. You know, try to show the people we can make good cigars, but not for lots of money. I haven't smoked some of his new releases, but in general, it's one of the brands which you can try, and you can not pay crazy money, and you can still be happy. And the next pile here, it's a brand. Probably I don't think there's lots of people who never heard of this brand, and this is J.C. Newman. J.C. Newman is one of the oldest cigar brands in the world. J.C. Newman being in the market since 19th century, so they're one of those brands which start in the 1870s, 1880s. Hungarian immigrant, Julius Caesar. He immigrated to the States. He started his company. He didn't do cigars, of course, at the beginning. He doing other stuff, but at some point he jumped into the cigar producing. Now I think Drew Newman is fourth generation of the family, and they were still producing cigars. They're one of those very super unique company who are producing cigars in the US. They're producing cigars in Nicaragua. They're producing cigars in DR as well. In DR, they don't own facility. Their cigars are made by Fuente. So Fuente family and the Newman family have the agreement from almost 40, 50 years ago, where Fuente decided to move to DR. They ask Newmans to continue their distribution of their cigars in the US. Newmans agree with one condition: Fuente will make a Dominican handmade premium cigar for them in return. So that's how they start. Producing their Dominican lines. Further down the line, Newmans open a factory in Nicaragua, which is massive. And of course, as Jacob mentioned, they're still producing in Tampa, the iconic factory called El Reloj, the clock. They're still in Tampa. They produce very small amount of cigars, but they're still producing there. So, I guarantee you don't know why they call him Caesar. I mean, okay, the story I know about Caesar, and Caesar, you can see spelled wrong. It's not the right way to spell Caesar. So, the story I know. So when he moved to US, when they were filling his documents and papers for a passport, the immigration officer or the passport officer made a mistake, putting the name as a Caesar, and that's why the Caesar is spelled wrongly. It's not the right way to spell Caesar. because the immigration officer did that mistake. That's the story I know. I hope I'm right. Nadir, probably you can correct me and see if am I right or no. But yeah, they have all those stuff are made in Dominican Republic by Fuente. They have the Maximus, of course, the Diamond Crown, the Connecticut standard Diamond Crown. But they have lots of other interesting cigars. So this one here, it's one of the old releases of Jose Gaspar a few years ago. So every year in Tampa there's a festival of the pirates or something like that. They call it the tradition of Gasparia. And they produce those big double Coronas, Jose Gaspar. This was 2022, 2023, I believe, release. I still have a bunch of those. There we go. Nadir explained it. There was only C. They told him, as long as you're jealous, so let's call you Caesar. Okay. This in my hands is a Cuesta A, which is very, very old brand. In the 1950s, Newman's acquired the brand and they continue making them. Cuesta A is usually very, very mild cigar. This is my only Cuesta A I have. In this box, I have a bunch of interesting stuff as well. So their Nicaraguan production usually is well known for their more of a budget lines. Of course, Brick House is one of the iconic cigars from Jason Newman. I have an interesting Brick House here. This is the last year Bricktoberfest. So every year around Oktoberfest they release a special release, and this is the last year one, which I believe is pretty much the same blend but just a slightly different size, with the interesting pigtail as well on this one. Of course, a cigar which I believe everyone try at least once in his life. This is the Quorum. It's a very budget cigar, but it's one of the most selling cigars around the world. What I have here is another cigar which I probably, if Nadir, you are a big Jason Newman fan, I don't think you've seen this one. But this one is called Salzburg. So Salzburg is especially made for the Austrian market, as you can see. Every year there's a very few 100 boxes only for the Austrian market. So Salzburg used to be a very old brand, which in some point there was a collaboration. Newman's found some very old boxes and they decided to re-release the brand. And of course, Salzburg is a city in Austria. They decided to do it for the Austrian market. And in this box, Dexter's just mentioned something. I need to try Angel Cuesta. So that's Angel Cuesta. That's the cigar Dexter mentioned. I have this cigar from Andre, our dear friend who is usually on the chat. He gave me that in the Intertabac a couple months ago. I still haven't smoked it, but I have it now. In some point, I'm going to smoke the Angel Cuesta and I will let you know. And also in this box, I have a cigar which I want to smoke since the release. This is one of those cigars where someone asked me actually yesterday, hey, is there a cigar which you hype and you want to smoke? And I'll say, I'm not usually hyping any more cigars, but this was one of the cigars I hyped for a very long time. And this is the American. So this cigar, the American, is probably one of the most well-known cigars for that, which is made entirely in the US, using entirely American tobaccos. Everything in this cigar is made in the US, even the cellophane, the bands, the box, the hinges in the box, everything of this cigar is made in the US with the American stuff. So I've never smoked this one. Andre also gave me that one, so it's in my list to smoke them at some point. And of course, this box, this is from the first release of those, another iconic cigar. This is Yagua. Yagua was a very interesting project, which I was so happy when I found out about it. So the project of the Yagua, they basically roll the cigars and they don't put them in the molds or half wheels or rolls. They just keep them in a palm leaves like this one, Yagua. And basically every cigar from that bundle, it's with a different shape because they've been pressed in this Jaguar. So you can see it's not an oval, it's like with a big lump on this side. I don't know if you can see it from the camera, but it's far from being a round or oval. Then I'll pull another one. This is so squeezed on one of the ends, it's like a box press. So every cigar basically have a different shape in this round wheel. There we go, another one which is completely different shape. So this was a full wheel when I have them. Now they're 12 cigars, so I've smoked quite a few of those. It's a really tasty cigar. I like the Jaguar a lot. There's one problem with the Jaguar, never burn right. I don't remember smoking a Jaguar and I have a perfect burn and everything. It always need touching ups and relighting. Well, relighting not, but touch ups around. And yeah, maybe the shape, maybe the way they age them and ferment them. That's what caused those problems. But yeah, otherwise it's a very tasty cigar. Right, this was Jason Newman. Interesting brand, such a versatile brand. They have everything: cheap, expensive, rare, unique Nicaraguan cigars, Dominican cigars, American cigars, everything. Review for the site. Of course, one day I will do review. You know, I'm trying to review every interesting cigar now I smoke. So you can follow. I mean, I realized since I started the reviews on the website 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I've already have over 90 reviews. So I think I'm doing well. But yeah. Amok was asking, what's the real cost of the production of the cigars? What's the average cost of production for a premium, New World, and Cuban stick? Can't tell you much about the Cuban because there's not much of information on anything, but I think will be pretty much the same. But in average, to produce cigars in any of the countries which produce cigars, I think it doesn't cost you more than $3 to $4 final price. You know, with buying tobacco, some old tobacco, expensive tobacco, whatever the story they can tell you, $3-4. Of course, on top of that, you can start adding prices for bands, for boxing. Then you need to add prices for people who work, you know, like a brand ambassadors and stuff, because that's a cost which you add on top of that. You know, having more reps cost more money. Of course, the cigar will be more expensive. Shipping, import duties, margin of importers, margin of retailers, and that's why some prices go crazy. But I don't understand how a cigar can cost $100. For me, it doesn't matter what you're doing, what you adding into those equations, it just doesn't go to $100 per stick. Some boxes can be expensive, some packaging can be expensive, but not as crazy as they saying. So yeah, I think in some points they just say, no, this will be that expensive because it's fancy, it's random, it's a special, it's one-off release, it's a unique collaboration, and etc. etc. But making cigars, it would not cost you more than $3-4. Even if you go to a factory and ask him to produce you a white label or custom blend, they won't charge you more than that for a cigar. But you need to order a big quantity. So the next brand, I have a box. It's called JFR. JFR, it's an interesting conception. It's technically a Ganorsa, but I always separate them. I don't keep them with the Aganorsa stuff. Aganorsa, the Nicaraguan producers have talked about Aganorsa so many times, but JFR is another offshoot they started doing about 10 years ago. And JFR stands for just for retailers. So the whole idea and the whole project here being to produce cigars just for the brick and mortar retailers. To be high quality tobacco but on a lower price, and during the years they have so many variations and so many stuff. So what I'm going to show you, this is a JFR Super Toro. It's a massive chunky cigar, 6.5 52. They're fairly cheap, fairly inexpensive. Then they have the Lunatic series, and this is one of the first Lunatics, very brown cellophane. normal size. I'm saying normal because some of their stuff are not normal. They did the Hysteria as well. That's a barber pole. The Torch, which was a massive length, 6.5, 52. And then they start with the real lunatics. So this one is El Loco. It's a 4 3/4 torpedo, perfecto, 70 ring gauge. It's a massive cigar. I don't know if you can see it. And then when you have El Loco, and then you have El Gran Loco next to him. So if you think El Loco is chunky, El Gran Loco is 5.5 by 80. You can see this is how it look in my hand. In my mouth will be like that. It's ridiculous. I'm not a massive fan of those ones, but I smoke one of those. I mean, I give away the rest of the stuff. I keep few for myself. I smoked one of those in China when I was traveling last year. It was alright cigar, but it was 3 hours and something. I mean, for a 5.5 inch cigar, it's a very heavy cigar. It's a very tightly packed cigar. It's not just fresh air or something. Of course, can be boring. Size is ridiculous. But Aganorsa and Lunatic are usually the brand which is associated with all the big ring gauges. I believe when Aganorsa released the 100 ring gauge was part of the Lunatic, maybe. Which, I mean, 100 ring gauge is come on. But yeah, I have those type of stuff. I believe this is the biggest cigar I have in my humidor, a smokable cigar, 80 ring gauge, almost 6 inch, massive. And there's one more brand I want to mention tonight. I believe not many people know about it. It's a very niche and small one. This is a brand called Joseph Nirvana. Joseph Nirvana, they're actually not a fairly new brand. They're quite old brand. I think they're already about 15, 18 years on the market. I don't know if you can focus on the brand. It's very dark and oily cigar. The brand is American. I believe they're based in California somewhere. Not sure what Jacob stands for, Joseph. But Nirvana, the idea of Nirvana is that cigars are made in Nicaragua. Near Nicaragua, Vana came from Nirvana, like the ultimate enjoyment. So that's why Nirvana. Most of their cigars are made by Plasencia, actually, so pretty decent producer, making lots of good custom blends. So this is one of them. I've never smoked those. I have 2 cigars for so many years. I don't know why I don't smoke them. I mean, at some point I'll probably smoke it, make a review, put it out there. I haven't seen anyone reviewing those, but yeah, it's one of those brands I have in the humidor. Right, those was the 5 cigars I want to mention, the 5 brands as usual. Next time when we do the show, there will be one massively big brand and few boutique ones. But that will be next time. So we're nearly towards the end of the show. If you guys want to ask anything, now is the moment to ask some final questions. Next week, it's 24th November. There will be no episode next week. I will have an event in UK in Windsor. If you guys are around here, if you want to have a chat and smoke with me, I will be in Windsor, in the cigar lounge in Windsor, in Havana House. I have an event with Freud. We're gonna smoke the Super Ego. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna drink some nice whiskey. So unfortunately, there will be no live next week, but I will be back with the lives on. Let me see what's the calendar. 1st of December, I believe. 1st of December. I don't have a massive plans at the moment, so most likely I'll be around. Is my humidor organized by name, alphabet? Yes. My humidor is organized by alphabeting system. As you can see behind me, on the top drawer, for example, the top shelf, not drawer, top shelf, I have A, B, C, D, and E. The bottom is until I think the last letter on the bottom is M. On the middle, the bottom one is finishing with S, and I have the final draw on the bottom, finishing obviously with Z. I think I have cigars with every alphabet existing. Um, so yeah, there's still plenty of stuff to come around and show you. What's my favorite pairing with cigars? I don't think I can pick one pairing. I can have pairings depending on the cigar, but I non-alcoholic. I prefer tea. I don't drink coffee. I don't pair with coffee. Tea is my option. I can pair with so many different teas. I'm not massive fan of the fizzy drinks like Coke, sodas, Fanta, any of those monsters, energy drinks, Red Bulls. Not massive fan of them, so I don't drink them. I like milk. This is a little bit, odd and weird. Fresh milk is actually really nice pairing with some cigars, predominantly strong cigars. With non-alcoholic drinks, usually when I review sometimes, or when I'm in a session of tasting something, I like to drink sparkling water with a bit of lime or lime cordial a little bit and slice of limes. It's so refreshing. So yeah, on an alcoholic options, I don't mind a good whiskey. I like some bourbons, I like some rice, I like Japanese, Indian whiskeys. Basically, I don't have problems with the whiskeys by the regions. Some people say, I drink only Scotch, I drink only Irish. No, I have selection over there just from all kind of different whiskeys. Rum is a good option for a pairing. I mean, I think rum and cigars are made to pair together. Most of the rums are very good pairings for cigars. Cognacs or brandies, Armagnacs, there's a very good options as well, especially if you find the decent ones. I'm not a big fan of the big fours, but everything except the big fours I think can be very successful. Someone mentioned Armenian brandy. I mean, Ararat is Yerevan, Ararat, they're decent, very decent brandies. Metaxa is a very nice one, so if you haven't tried Metaxa, it's a Greek brandy. It's really nice one, especially if you go for a 5 or 7 stars, or even 12 if you find, because they're so expensive. But they're very, very good pairings. I used to drink lots of Metaxa when I was in my youth. So yeah, I mean, cocktails, another good option. I experiment a lot with cocktails in the last few years. There's lots of gin-based cocktails which are very nice. I'm not a big fan of vodka-based cocktails. Vodka is the only alcohol I don't consume neat. For me, it's tasteless and it's pointless. Vodka can be used only on cocktails, on some cocktails though. Gin is another one which I usually don't drink neat, but gin is a very good base for lots of cocktails, and I like it on cocktails. Wine is a beautiful pairing, but you need to be careful with what kind of wine, what kind of cigar. Champagne, always nice opening pairing. If you want a session on the evening, you want to start with something, start with champagne, will clear your palate. That fizziness is so refreshing after a cigar. Even if you don't like the cigar, champagne is a good pairing because you can cleanse your palate easily. Moldovan Dvin brand is very good. I've never tried it, but all those countries in that region, ex-Eastern Bloc, they do a good brandy. Even Bulgaria used to do a phenomenal brandy called Sunny Beach or Slunche Breg. There's another one called Pliska. There's another one called Preslav. Phenomenal ones. If you find some of them, go to Bulgaria and buy a decent bottle. It won't cost you almost anything, and they're really, really tasty. I don't think you can find them out of Bulgaria. But yeah, milk in a cigar for me tastes really nice. But I love milk. So I know lots of people cannot stand milk. They don't drink milk for many reasons. But milk is really, really nice with a cigar, especially with stronger and darker type wrappers. It's really tasty, change the flavors completely in your mouth, give you that explosion of milkiness and sweetness. I don't usually consume other types of milk. I like coconut milk, but I don't class it as a milk. So for me, it's more of a water type thing. I don't drink any other, hazelnut and nutty and whatever milks. I don't believe in them. Fan of pork, yes. a good port can be a good option. You know, fortified wines are always interesting, but you need to be okay with sweetness. You know, some people are not fan of the sweetness, that's why they don't like port. But port, sherry, any of the sherries, Amontillado, Pedro Jimenez, they're good options. But you need to make sure you have a decent port or sherry. Some of those, I would say, more of a cheaper version. They doesn't feel that flavorful, and yeah, goat milk is nice too. Yes, for cheese, not for drinking. Not totally. I don't know. Goat milk tastes weird for me. I don't drink it. I prefer cow milk, and that's it. That's the only milk I like. But yeah, you don't need to try to. I mean, you don't need to try drinking milk and smoke cigars if you sound weird. Again, for me, it was one of the really cleansing palate drinks where it doesn't matter what cigars you smoke, especially on the stronger spectrum. Milk is always a good option. There was a big period of time when I was tasting and smoking cigars. I was cleansing my palate with milk all the time, and that's how I realized actually milk can work with the cigars. You know, just after a cigar, sometimes you have that aftertaste which you don't enjoy. Not every cigar have a nice aftertaste. Just have a half a pint of milk, drink it. Your mouth is very different after that. So, yeah, it's just an advice, just a um, uh, you know tip from me. Right, folks. I mean, this is one of the longest episodes we did. Tom says good night. Good night from me. One I want non-alcoholic is always have tea with saffron and cinnamon or cardamom in it. I mean, having tea with saffron, cardamom, or cinnamon, it's too overpowering for me. I very rarely have tea with that, especially with saffron. I mean, I don't like cardamom usually, so cardamom is very rarely something I drink. Saffron I don't mind, but it's a little bit too overpowering. The cinnamon is nice on the tea. There's a few blends with pure egg and cinnamon from a few different producers. It's a very nice combination. The cinnamon is not heavily cinnamony, so it's just a touch of cinnamon, but that's a nice one. Yeah, but I appreciate it all you guys. It's been already an hour and a half. I apologies for the long show, but I like it. I enjoy it. I hope none of you smoking outside on 2 degrees at the moment and just buzzing and says, hey, when this guy will finish talking or when I'm going to finish my cigar. Appreciate you all. And again, there will be no show next week. Apologies on that one. I'll be back on 1st of December where we're going to start talking already about the final rankings and stuff like that. I believe around that week, some of the first publications will start coming up with the top 25, top 10s and stuff. I love December talking about rankings, ranting, and what I agree, what I don't agree. So on this note, I wish you a wonderful week. Very positive. Christmas is almost on the door. Will be snowy this week here, so I like snow. I love the snow, so I'm hoping there will be nice piece, of snow early this year, so we can have some fun with the kids. And in the meantime, I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time, 1st of December, same time, 8 p.m. on the same channel, The Late Smoke with me, Ray, and where we're gonna discuss the usual stuff. There will be much more news than today, I'm sure. There will be already 2 weeks to talk about. And on this note, smoke your cigars. Tomorrow's never given, and good night. I'll see you all in 2 weeks.